Rockets 2nd seed versus Warriors 7th seed. This is going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a defensive battle. Houston has held Golden State to some low-scoring output games. I'm very comfortable in Warriors in 6. I think the athleticism of the Rockets is going to be very tough, but the Rockets are at a disadvantage with who they initiate their offense through on the perimeter. I think Jalen Green over his last 10 games has averaged 14 points against the Warriors. He's had one good, efficient game against them this season. Really hasn't been all that good. And Jalen Green is prone to inefficient nights, bad decision-making. And I think the Warriors have a plethora of defenders to throw at him. We've seen Moses Moody and AirPods really step up defensively as of late. And if you really can, you want to, you could put Jimmy Butler on the perimeter. So I feel like Jalen Green, I don't trust him. Yeah, there's a chance that he explodes. But for me, I don't feel it. And Alperen Sengun this year against Draymond Green. Draymond Green has held them to 10 for 25 shooting, 40% from the field, 8 assists and 4 turnovers. If you play through Sengun and you are matched up on Draymond Green, I feel like that's an inefficient source of offense. And it's just a lack of shooting for Houston. They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. And in terms of points per play, they're 22nd in half-court offense. So I just don't think they'll be able to generate enough offense to beat Golden State. And with Golden State, Steph Curry, every single possession down can give you a chance at a great offensive possession and a potential 4-on-3 opportunity. And that's where I feel like that's going to be the difference, the easy offense for Golden State, even with the toughness of the defense that the Rockets play with. I just think that it is very hard, even if you do have the individual defenders to defend Steph, it is very hard to navigate around all those screens and those switches. Eventually, there's going to be somebody that's a weaker defender that they're going to pick on within the offense. And then Jimmy Butler's been playing like playoff Jimmy. When Steph Curry's off the court, he's averaging 25 points per 75 possessions. So in those lineups, towards the end of the first quarter, when Steph Curry is sitting out with the breather, we see the Warriors usually make their biggest surge, their biggest runs with him on the floor, just dictating offense. So I love Golden State in this matchup. I think they got a favorable matchup. I think this is actually easier than playing the Lakers in the first round. So they kind of lucked out by playing in the play-in and now playing an inexperienced Houston team. So I'm going with the Warriors in 6. I feel very comfortable in this series.
Before y'all go, I want to know who Drew took here. Because you have his picks, you said?
Drew?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Drew said...
Because you guys made a bet when I was out, I heard.
Yes. So Drew is going with the Rockets in 6. And he went with OKC in 5, whoever it is.
Yeah, I figured. But yeah, now I heard the bet about your Rockets Warriors one, but then when I was talking to Drew, he's like, I might just take the Warriors, so I'm saved on either side. But I'm with you. I got the Warriors in this series. I do think that they lucked out. I shouldn't say lucked out, but they did the right thing being able to put away Memphis in that play-in, because if they would have lost and dropped to the 8 seed against OKC, I think that would have been a really good series, but I think OKC would have ended up winning that. But Houston was really the one team. It was them and Memphis earlier in the year, the last couple of months, that both of those are the two teams in the top 4 that I think some of these older teams like Golden State, for example, the Lakers for a part, where maybe they didn't have home court advantage, but they were looking at some of those young teams saying, if we have to play somebody, we want it to be them. And I think that's how Golden State feels going up against this Houston Rockets team. Jimmy Butler has been fantastic. You look at the numbers when Jimmy Butler has been in the starting lineup with all of his guys, with Steph and Draymond. This has been one of the best teams in basketball. When it's been those 3 out there, the only teams who have a better overall record since the Jimmy Butler trade have been the Thunder and the Boston Celtics. This has been one of the most elite teams in basketball. They are top 10 offensive rating, top 10 defensive rating, top 10 in net rating. This has been a team that has shown for multiple months now that if we're healthy and on the court together, we're up there with the elites of the NBA. And I think Houston's had a great regular season, but I think that's what they've been this season, is a great regular season team, because when I look at this matchup, I think the offense is going to be extremely questionable. I think it's going to be a slugfest, like you mentioned. I do think it's going to be a more defensive matchup, but you're banking on really 2 guys to initiate a lot of your offense. It's going to be Jalen Green. It's going to be Sengun, right? And when you look at Sengun's matchups against Draymond Green, it hasn't been pretty. Of course, Draymond's one of the best defenders in basketball, and Sengun can make things happen without putting the ball in the basket. But the other guy you're banking on is Jalen Green. And Jalen Green is one of the most volatile players in the NBA. And game to game, you just don't really know what you're going to get from him. He has months. Drew loves to talk about these March and April runs that Jalen Green has, where he's an efficient shooter and he's averaging 25 a game.
30.
But this is a really, really good Golden State Warriors defense, right? They have multiple guys I think you could throw. at Jalen Green, especially when they go small. It's going to be a bit tougher to switch. Obviously, he's going to try to get Steph on him and work there, but you have so many different guys, so many smart defenders in Draymond, Jimmy Butler, that it's just going to be really, really difficult for them to be able to, for Jalen Green to be able to get his offense going. And if this team is going to struggle that much offensively, they're going to need a lot to go right defensively. And as great of a team they've been defensively, I think you're putting too much burden on that side of the ball to be able to overcome what Golden State has. And that's just a bit of overwhelming amount of talent compared to what Houston has right now. I think Ime is going to put together a great game plan because Ime always does. But shit, I saw a couple years ago, Ime against Golden State in the finals. Steph, give me a screen. Oh, you're dropping Al Horford? I'm going to hit a 3 for 6 damn games and nothing's going to stop. So I do worry a little bit about, is he going to be able to adjust if that ends up happening? I'm sure he's learned since then, but I think Golden State takes this series in 6.
I'd argue this is probably the toughest defensive matchup for Golden State, specifically for Steph, because you have a 6'7" demon over there that's probably going to guard you for the most part. Athleticism is off the charts, speed is off the chart, recovery speed is off the charts, and that's Amen. Almost probably going to be guarding you the whole series, so that's going to be tough for Steph. And if you can make things tough for Steph, then you can make Golden State vulnerable in any type of matchup. So I think Houston defensively is going to cause a lot of problems. You know, you have Amen, you have Dylan Brooks, you have Tari Eason, Jabari Smith is a solid defender. Even Fred VanVleet is a little bit annoying on the defensive side. The only probably mismatch you would like is Jalen Green, Sengun at the rim for the Golden State. But at the same time, you know, this is a matchup that, you know, people aren't talking about it, but all the cards are on the table for Golden State. Like, this is all hands on deck. You know, you have the most pressure. You can't go into this because people are picking them as the favorites. You know, you guys are the veterans. You have Steph, you have Jimmy, you have Dre. You know, all eyes are on you to kind of win this. You're kind of walking in like you have everything against you. And I think in this series, you know, like you mentioned, I think when you watch these teams play, it's a slugfest. And I think what Houston loves is slugfest because that fits more their style. But in the fourth quarter, late in games, you know, you want to trust Steph Curry. You want to trust Jimmy Butler. You want to trust Draymond Green. What I've noticed from this team is the Stephless minutes where Jimmy Butler is able to create opportunities for pods, create opportunities for Quentin Post, create opportunities for other guys. And like you mentioned, the defenders and Moses Moody, who's been really locked in lately. You got Jimmy, who's always locked in, specifically as a team defender. He's elite at that. Then Draymond Green, of course, being able to be a help side rim protector and then switching off to Kawhi mid-game. You know, that's some versatility you don't get a lot. You know, and then guys like GP, which me and John were like laughing about it a little bit, but GP has been getting beat lately, beat a lot lately. So I hope he locks in lately. But I think for Houston, it's offensively, how do they, like, what's their under 5 minute go-to move? Like, you saw with Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, you saw their go-to fourth quarter moves. You saw their go-to fourth quarter plays. It's Steph sets the screen, Jimmy comes off. You see Draymond set the off ball, Steph bang 3. For Houston in the playoffs, what's their go-to move? I think the series is going to be really close. I think it's going to be a tough series. But when you get late into those games, what is Houston's go-to punch? What is Houston's go-to move? Who are they going to go to? With Golden State, you have Steph, you have Jimmy. You can go to two guys that are built for this moment. With Houston, it's kind of figuring out what that is for them. And I do think they're going to cause a lot of problems defensively. But what I worry about is schematically, what they're going to run offensively. Because Golden State, like you mentioned, is also an elite defense that you can't just walk over. You can't just like score against. So for me, I got Golden State in 6 or 7 games. I think Golden State obviously has experience. They have the two of the best players in the series by far. But I think also they have the role players that are kind of equipped to win this series. I also would love to see Jonathan play in this type of specific series. I think
makes sense.
This is the series for him to play in.
They need better rebounding.
They need rebounding. They need athleticism. They need chaos. You don't need to. I don't want to sound disrespectful, but you don't need to think too much in this series. This is a bunch of athletic guys that's going to be on the court. You know, you're not playing experienced guys. Where I think even an experienced coach, Ime's a great coach, but he's not too experienced in that department. Where Jonathan Kuminga, I think he needs serious run in this series. But I got Golden State in this one. I think it's going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be an energetic one. I think the rivalry is going to be fun and exciting. It's going to be interesting to see out of Dylan Brooks and Draymond who ends the series. You know, one of them could get ejected.
Over under 1.5 attacks.
For sure, easily. No doubt in my mind. But I'm definitely excited to see this series. But I got Golden State 6.
The Rockets have a chance to win the series. And we talk a lot about the Warriors picking and choosing what matchup that they wanted. And maybe this is perfect for them. They get the team that's least experienced and not been in the playoffs before. But On the Rockets side of things, this is a Warriors team that's very vulnerable in the ways that the Rockets just won 52 games this year. And all season long, I've been tentative on Houston because Jalen Green is their main option in the playoffs was something that I wasn't too sure about. But when you look at what this Rocket team does so well, they're the best rebounding team in the NBA. You not only have Steven Adams for 10, 15 minutes, who's the best offensive rebounder in the NBA, and Alperen Şengün, but then Amen Thompson and Jabari Smith and Tyrese. And I think all of these players are going to put a lot of pressure on, like you highlighted, Steph and AirPods to rebound very well from the perimeter. And I think the next thing for Houston is creating chaos. And that's where the Warriors are the team and the player that's going to change the series the most to me is Jimmy Butler. Because the Warriors notoriously are a team that's high turnover. They give up the ball a lot. But with Jimmy coming in, they've been a better, more cohesive team at taking care of the ball. And I think that is why I'm going to have the Warriors winning the series, because what the Rockets want is the Warriors to run the ball and make this an open, fast-paced game in transition where they're getting out and they're taking it away from the half court. And that's where they remind me a lot of the 2022 Grizzlies. At their first year in the playoffs, they won 56 games. They beat the T-Wolves and they played the Warriors in round 2. And I think this Rocket team is the most similar example where they have all the physical advantages in most matchups. And I'm excited to see Amen on Steph because I think that's a perfect matchup. You've got Dylan Brooks on Jimmy Butler, but I think it comes back to, number one, Jimmy Butler on the offensive end, simplifying the game, and then 2, Draymond defending Alperen Şengün. And if the Rockets really want to win the series, we know what they need. It's a good, consistent 4 to 5 games from Jalen Green. But coinciding with that, they need to really involve Amen Thompson in primary actions, because I'm afraid if they don't involve him enough, the Warriors are going to pick and choose to leave him open off the ball. And now while the Warriors are getting 4 and 3s on offense, on the other end, now the Rockets are having 1 or 2 guys left open. If they're not hitting shots, that's where this series can end 5. But I'm going to have the Warriors in 6. I think it'll be a super competitive 6 games. And if all the first round matchups, this is going to be the most physical. I think it's going to be one of the most exciting. And I think it's going to be one of the fastest paced.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, just going back to Riv's point, what Ime does in late game situations, if it is close, what he does with Jalen Green. Because we've seen Jalen Green in this regular season. We've seen multiple moments where Ime's sitting him and he's having him on the bench, right? And you look at the regular season, you're like, okay, is this Ime trying to get different looks? Is this Ime, Jalen Green's having a bad game, I don't trust him with the ball in his hands? Or is this Ime saying, no, like when the playoffs come around, I don't know if I could trust Jalen Green. I don't know if I want him out there on the court because I have other guys that make better decisions or have better shot selection. Because I feel like the way the Rockets win this series is if Jalen Green's playing at a high level, but especially in those fourth quarters, right? He's not going to be able to go bar to bar, necessarily with Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, but I think it's going to be really difficult to close out games and close out this series if Jalen Green's on the bench and you're running a lot of offense through guys that either have bad matchups and a guy like Şengün or other guys who, like Fred VanVleet and Amen Thompson, who like at this point in both their careers, one being young, one being older, it's like, are they really going to be the guy that, being the initiator of the offense, to be able to break down this Warriors defense, consistently get good looks? And, I think really the only real reliable shooter you've had this year has been Dylan Brooks for the majority of the season. So it's going to be a tough look. I think Jalen Green's really going to have to come to play. I know he's the X factor for a lot of people in this series, but especially in the clutch, especially in those last, 4 or 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, the rebounding is huge because you watched in that Clippers game, even in the Memphis game, Warriors struggle with rebounding, especially on the defensive side. I'm very big on, you finish up a defensive play by grabbing that rebound, and if you don't, it's not a complete defensive play. And you saw a lot with Edey, with Zubac. They didn't clean up the glass like they wanted to. And a team like Houston, they don't have that one singular presence that can get a ton of offensive rebound. But it's like 3 to 4 athletic demons that can just kill the glass. And like you mentioned, Steph and Pods are gonna get a lot of run, and those are small guards where Houston plays Amen, Tyrese, and Jabari Smith. Like, they're going to be a big physical team. So I'm excited to see that.
Pods are their best positional rebounder. So, he's going to have to average 7 at least. And I think one more interesting tidbit on this game is the Rockets' record this year, and Jalen Green scores 30 or more points. What do you guys think it is?
It's a high record.
Undefeated.
Almost. They're 13-1.
I was going to say 8-1.
The one game they lost?
Warriors?
Denver. Without Jokic.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's a weird game. Okay.
Yep.
The size advantage that the Rockets have is
no, without Jokic part. I thought if I wanted to say it, I was like, I should say it.
The rebounding advantage they have is huge. Steven Adams, when he's on the court, they have the highest offensive rebound percentage of all time.
For 36, Steven Adams averaging 7 offensive rebounds.
He's just so fucking strong in his position.
The thing about that, though, is that they can't play him too much because then you're going with double big lineups. You're vulnerable to drop coverage, and you're vulnerable to let a lot of threes fly. So I think they have to be very meticulous with how many times they're having Steven Adams out there in those lineups, in those double big lineups. You mentioned the clutch time offense. It's just the difference between Golden State and Houston is, let's say in the last 5 minutes, you have 9 possessions. Golden State's 9 possessions are all running through Steph, Butler, or Draymond making a decision. With Houston, it's a Fred VanVleet drive. It's a Jalen Green shot. It's a Men Thompson, or it's Şengün post up. Yeah. It's just too much variance to where if they're playing perfect team basketball and they're collapsing the defense constantly and generating a ton of open looks, then they can suffice. But overall, they don't have any go-to scorer in isolation that's efficient in isolation. So that's why there's always that caveat with the Rockets. Yeah, they could win if Jalen Green is turns into Devin Booker.